Hi, everyone.
Hello. We have reached Genesis chapter 11, verse 10. The elect line, the line of Shem, is narrowed down now in these few verses to one man, ultimately. So let's read from verses 10 through 32.
You were going to start?
I'm going to start. These are the generations of Shem. When Shem was 100 years old, he fathered Arpachshad 2 years after the flood, and Shem lived after he fathered Arpachshad 500 years and had other sons and daughters. When Arpachshad had lived 35 years, he fathered Shelah, and Arpachshad lived after he fathered Shelah 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah had lived 30 years, he fathered Eber, and Shelah lived after he fathered Eber 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber had lived 34 years, he fathered Peleg, and Eber lived after he fathered Peleg 430 years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg had lived 30 years, he fathered Reu, and Peleg lived after he fathered Reu 209 years and had other sons and daughters. When Reu had lived 32 years, he fathered Serug, and Reu lived after he fathered Serug 207 years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug had lived 30 years, he fathered Nahor, and Serug lived after he fathered Nahor 200 years and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor had lived 29 years, he fathered Terah, and Nahor lived after he fathered Terah 119 years and had other sons and daughters.
After Terah had lived 70 years, he became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. This is the account of Terah. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran became the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, in the land of his birth. Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren. She had no children. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram. And together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. And when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran.
Anybody asleep yet? Because that's what chronology and genealogies tend to do to most of us.
Yeah, certainly me.
But as a Jehovah's Witness, as a sincere pioneer, and later an elder and a troubleshooter in the congregation, this stumbled me. I have to say, at this date, looking back now, the 10 years that I had to live with cognitive dissonance over this text really stumbled me. Why? Because I had to deal with the fact that the Watchtower was very dogmatic, that the 10 generations from Noah to Abraham were, well, from 2370, the flood, till about 2018, they actually have specific dates. So they give you a specific date for the flood, 2370 BC, specific date for Abraham, 2018, and it's all built from this. And that generates, of course, a specific date for Adam and Eve, which is 4026. Now they state those dates dogmatically as if there's absolutely no doubt that this is the biblical data faithfully reproduced. But of course it isn't, because what's the assumption behind all of this?
Yeah, well, that you're supposed to add everything up. That this is an instruction almost. That you should add these up and put them all together and make a nice line of chronology. But the thing that I noticed in reading it is it keeps saying and had other sons and daughters. It's giving you information, but it's not stressing so much. I wouldn't say that it's stressing so much the chronology as the lines.
Yeah.
You know, that it's wanting you to know that yes, this person had this, but he had other children as well. But what's important to this story that I'm telling you is this person and their line.
But if you're in the fundamentalist mindset, as the Watchtower is, you're locked in by your assumptions about the Bible itself. namely that this chronology is here to give you, or that is the dates are here and the birth dates are here to give you the chronology, which of course it doesn't do. It doesn't add up the numbers. You add up the numbers and end up with 350 between flood and Abraham. But there is a problem with that, which is that even though I knew from the aid book itself that the Septuagint, the Greek version of the Old Testament, had a different chronology, it didn't impress me because as a loyal Jehovah's Witness, I had to hold to the Hebrew chronology.
Yeah.
Now, would I have thought that that was a major problem? Not at the beginning, and not for a long time. But it is a major problem, because why does the Watchtower, and why do fundamentalists choose the Hebrew chronology over the Greek?
Well, I think in my mind anyways, Hebrew is before Greek. So you think, I'm just being simple about it, but that's the way I thought.
That's right, priority.
Hebrew comes first, so it would be safer to go with the Hebrew text than it would be, and it would be more close to the events.
But what's the problem with that?
Well, it's an assumption for one thing.
The early church had the Greek Bible. So for them, this was not a problem, and there's no evidence that for the first 2 or 3 centuries the church debated which chronology. They don't seem to be concerned about it.
They don't make an issue of it. They don't say, I insist that we find the Hebrew and use it.
Now, why was it a problem for me as a Jehovah's Witness, having to be loyal to the Watchtower's chronology and their view of Genesis? I had to fit all the events of ancient history in between the flood, 2370, and the line of Abraham around 2000. But the Septuagint gives you an extra 700 or 800 years, so the flood is pushed back to around 3000 BC. That's a big help. And the overall chronology of the Bible is pushed back to 5500 approximately BC. So if I just said, oh, well, we've got some thousands, maybe 1,500 years to play with here, I wouldn't have spent thousands of dollars and thousands of hours assembling a library to prove that the Watchtower's chronology was correct.
But because the Watchtower insists that this is the dates, you have to go with that rather than give yourself that leeway.
I'm afraid so. That's what it amounts to, loyalty. So sooner or later that cognitive dissonance, of course, grew and grew and grew as I realized the Watchtower's dogmatism about chronology was just a symptom. It wasn't the cause. They have to be dogmatic because they have to be the truth. And as you know,
They have
you
to
can
have all the
you can be
answers.
disfellowship for differing on anything, including the 1914 chronology.
Everything is vital. Whereas obviously the early church didn't think it was vital because they, it's not even referred to that it's different.
And even
when it's quoted.
Even the New Testament itself, if I just paid more attention to it, because I knew this, Paul in Galatians, in the New World Translation, contradicts the Hebrew chronology.
Yeah.
And says there's 430 years, or 400 years between Abraham and the Exodus.
And when they quote the Old Testament, you said that about 3/4 of the quotes are from the Greek text.
More than 3/4.
Yeah.
So the Bible they're using is the one that Paul is using in Galatians. So he's using the chronology from a different source than we did.
Yeah.
Since the average witness doesn't know that, we're laying stumbling blocks ultimately before ourselves, but also before the people we're evangelizing.
Yeah, so it didn't seem to be of vital importance to the early church that you go back to the Hebrew. They just used the Bible that they had in the language that the people knew.
And because the average witness doesn't know this, he stumbles over this, as I did, trying to be the best pioneer I knew how to be, forcing myself outside the Watchtower literature, which ultimately God used to break me out of the Watchtower. That's true. So I should be thankful in that sense.
Yeah, unless you're
Stumbled
like me.
out.
I think more witnesses were like me, and they just didn't notice these problems, or didn't pay much. They just went with whatever the Watchtower told them, and didn't worry about it or think about it a lot.
No, that's true. But even in the text, there's a couple of indicators, isn't there? There's a problem with this 350-year period from the flood. You've got the diminishing of the lifespan. And you don't notice that unless you pay attention to the numbers. Although the firstborn, or we assume the firstborn, are born approximately every 30 to 35 years, so that doesn't change. in the 10 generations, except at the beginning
first
and the
one.
end.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the lifespan drops in half after the generation of Eber. Interestingly, when Peleg it comes into the story, and we saw that the previous chapter makes an issue of the fact that Peleg's name,
Means
division.
divide. Yeah.
So at the Tower of Babel, the lifespan of mankind drops in half. And that did occur to me when I was a witness, and I thought, well, wait a minute, that's only supposed to have happened 200 years before Abraham. So what's going on that the lifespan is dropping so rapidly? So you have an indication right in the text that this span is a lot longer than we thought. But like you said before, the story is not about chronology, and it's not even about history. It's about tracing the line from Shem to Jacob by the end of the book, right?
The only reason we do this is because we've been made to feel that you have to have everything accurate. You have to have every detail mapped out. And I think it's not just a Watchtower problem. I think it's just a problem of our day.
Oh yeah.
That we stress facts and we stress the details.
And it makes for, like I'm saying, a stumbling block only because we associate those details with the credibility of the Bible.
Yeah.
And therefore we make them
dogmatic
part of
about
the
it.
message.
Yeah.
We shouldn't, because the early church didn't concern itself with this stuff. The gospel was something other. It was about facts that had happened within the memory of some people that were still alive about Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
Messiah,
Yeah.
not about Genesis. So, another thing we should mark, I suppose, is that at the beginning you've got Shem 100 years old when he has children, and at the end you've got Terah 70, and they are the exceptions here, right? As if it's leading forward to the aspect of the miraculous births of the main players, and it's true. Not only Abraham has his offspring late in life, but so does Isaac, and so does Jacob, and we often miss that fact.
Yeah, it's the ones that are actually in the line that have the differences, the more miraculous births. So you wanted to read
Gerhard von Rad here on the lifespans.
compared with Genesis chapter 5, this generation shows a further shortening of the lifespan. The procreative years also are earlier. This indicates the progressive decline of man's original state according to creation, and at the same time prepares the reader for the miracle of Isaac's conception.
Well said. We wanted to put a link into Adolf Deissmann. Deissmann is the man, more than anybody, credited with the discovery and promotion of the idea of koine Greek. This is a man who, again, was a contemporary of Russell and Rutherford. And if you're a witness, you've probably heard, if you've done your research, about koine Greek being the Greek of the New Testament, which is the common language of the people of that day.
Right.
But that knowledge has only been around about 120 years, and Deissmann is the main man who gave it to us. Now, he makes the point in the video that we're going to link that why are we so self-contradictory in our choice of Bible sources? Because the early church had a Greek Old Testament, and of course wrote the New Testament in Greek. So why is it that, at least since the Reformation, we've preferred to go back to the Hebrew text, which is transmitted not from the early church, but from the Hebrew scribes of the Middle Ages?
Yeah.
Deissmann deals with that quite extensively in his great, very famous book, Light from the Ancient East.
Yeah. And Bercot, you were going to link to Bercot, who is
Ex-witness.
an ex-witness and has done a lot of study in the area of church history. And he had a nice video specifically on
The Septuagint.
the Septuagint. Yeah, I
We
can't
will-
ever say it right.
We will link Bercot's discussion of that. It's about 20 minutes long, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
His discussion on YouTube, as well as the video we did on Deissmann's Light from the Ancient East.